Hi there, I'm Thomas and welcome to Prussian Husar. And today we have a look at a source, which is a footage of moving pictures, or better, a documentation from 1917 after a battle. So I'm trying out a new format. The battle was held in late of August of 1917 for the city of Riga, the capital of Latvia, which lies at the Baltic Sea. Now, I want to do a few things. First, putting what we see into some context, which means we follow the questions about the propagandistic purpose. Then we fill up our picture memory, because all of the modern documentaries rely on these sources. So they are able to visualize the narrative. In that way, we basically can get an idea what we see in these modern ones and where all this material comes from. Or in short, getting a deeper understanding of it. So we go through the footage and at the end there will be a short conclusion, as always. Because we are dealing with original footage, I'm going to let it be as original as it is. Let's dive in. So, the first panel we see says, Riga is taken, which might be the title of the whole footage. Below we can read, official military movie of the picture and movie office. Followed up by the next panel which says, on the 1st of September 1917, after fighting the enemy, German troops crossed the Duna near Uexküll. And the first thing we see are carriages drawn by horses. And a beautiful panorama. Followed by showing them going over a pontoon bridge. Have you seen the little group down the bottom right side? Maybe sitting on a fire? Just look at all the masses. They might carry supplies like food and ammo. Now we got the filming from the other side of the river. Here in the front we can observe some cheval de frise as fortifications as well as trenches. And now here the pole on the right side might be for communication, but I'm not sure about that. On this panel we can read, fierce enemy resistance could not stop the brave German troops. And now a short disclaimer and a trigger warning. You are about to see some dead bodies, so if that is nothing you would like to see, just skip to the next part. And here we have it. Several dead Russians lying around. And, of course, this part has a strong propagandistic touch. But it also shows the heroes and the outcome of war. Only it shows dead bodies of the enemy, not of their own German troops. This panel says, the enemy retreated in fierce flight, sharply pursued by our brave troops. So we can observe a pretty chaotic field here. Field kitchens, carriages and paper lying all around. In the back is a German soldier with a bicycle looking around. And another soldier with a walking stick comes into the frame. The shot changed obviously. In the front is a dead horse. More of the battlefield is shown with some German soldiers walking around. So this part has a clear propagandistic task too. To show what was conquered and to serve the narrative of the enemy escaping out of fear in sheer chaos. Again changing the scene, and this panel describes the traffic bridges near Riga blown up by the Russians. And that is exactly what we see, a blown up railroad bridge. This is just the usual business in a war, to destroy the infrastructure so the enemy's advance slows down. And we see all the damage that has been done here. So, here on this panel is said, the footbridge was made passable by our pioneers on the very first day of the infantry's capture. Again, this is exactly what we see. This one might visualize the efficiency of the pioneers and advertise their abilities. We see a lot of walkers around here, and people looking right into the camera. And now we can read, mounted troops and vehicles are towed across the Duna on immediately established prairies. Just look at all the horses and different vehicles. Even some cavalry to see here. There are some kitchen wagons and a truck and a lot actually of horses with saddles and even some lances we can see there on the boat. That is followed by the panorama of Riga. So we see the destroyed bridge from the distance and the beautiful city. Just look at all the houses there and what great it is. So let us enjoy it for a bit. Even some boats in the river, and now going on to the castle. The idea behind these shots might be to show what the troops were fighting for and maybe justifying the fights additionally. So this old castle is as well in very good shape and nothing is damaged. And now the panel describes the following as burning wood bridge. Another damage done by the fights. And we can see all the burning wood even down in the river. Now it goes to the unloading of troops in Riga. Again, we finally see some more cavalry. And remember, we are here in 1917, so the later stages of the war. And still cavalry is around. And they keep coming and coming. Observed by soldiers, kids and even some civilians. And we can see some lances. And yeah, now we have a field kitchen that gets unloaded. And now off to one of the most interesting parts of this footage. Departure of the squadron of Uhlans. It starts with the Uhlans mounting. The first thing we can recognize here are the lances. So they were still used in 1917. Then everyone is wearing a steel helmet and a canister for the gas mask. Now they are going off, and looking at all the tunics, there seems to be a mix between the old Ulanka and the new Feldbluse, if I got it right. This is a really, really awesome piece for me, or even us, because now we can a little bit observe more what all the troops have and how they actually look, even late in the war. Now we are about to look at destroyed magazines at the harbor, which is again a result of the fights, I suppose. And we see all the damage that has been done here, some burning, some stuff lying around, and civilians looking and living. And now we are at the marketplace at the Duna, which is obviously packed with people and pretty vivid. And a lot of the people are looking into the camera. Even there on the right side we had a tram going on. And now the panel states, shops senselessly destroyed and partially looted by the Russians. Just this statement on its own is a propagandistic touch. Well, we see some destroyed shops. Yes, maybe even partly looted. But if it was really the Russians, and the windows bursted just because of the artillery shots around there, I'm not sure about this. At least it is some sort of suspicious. And here we got even more German troops and even a medic coming. Moving on to a concert at the Schützenpark. Here we see a lot of the troops enjoying the time at the concert. A lot of them looking straight into the camera. It seems like they are not really used to cameras. Looking a bit closer, some of them seems to be part of the guard troops, which is indicated on the white piece on their collar. And now we have got a close-up of the band playing there. The arrival of His Majesty the Emperor in Riga. The Emperor arrived obviously on a prairie as well. Only his boat is covered in branches to make it more beautiful and a more beautiful impression. And it seems like he is accompanied by his staff, with cars and everything you need. And now he is welcomed by the Excellency Lieutenant General von Houtier. So the Emperor is welcomed and greeted by Lieutenant General Oscar von Houtier, while coming off the prairie. Interesting here is that all of the staff and high-ranked officers are wearing their spike helmets, in contrary to the common troops with their steel helmets. In the back there is the personal flag of the Emperor. And now His Majesty is in conversation with the Commander-in-Chief, East, Prince Leopold of Bavaria. Which is exactly again what we are about to see. Again, some more of his staff. So in total, the Emperor himself has a propagandistic impact, not only on the troops, but on the former viewer as well, since he is officially the head of the army as well as of the country and impersonates all the hopes and is a huge reason for many to fight the war. Yes, they're still talking, and we see a lot of traditional uniforms. And now, as the group is walking away, we can see a mix of uniforms between field grey and the former blue uniform. In fact, the blue uniform we just saw were just worn by the trumpeter and the standard bearer. And now we have to read here that the enthusiastic crowd in expression of His Majesty is to expect. And we got a street filled with people, soldiers and civilians, laughing and waiting. Which again shows the propagandistic effect of the Emperor he had or even was believed to have. And now the Emperor is about to make a tour of the troops on the esplanade. And obviously this effect was also considerate for the troops, hence the inspection. And as well, a boost of morale was for the troops considerate because they were able to see their commander-in-chief. So he walked down the formations for the inspections with all of the staff. And he shook hands, greeting, listening to some music as well. And we see all the soldiers there with their steel helmets, their guns and bayonets on their guns. And still walking around and looking at his troops. And again, all of his stuff. And as well, the personal banner of the Emperor is just following him anywhere. More greeting, more saluting, even more of it. And after that, there was a parade obviously done for the troops. So they were able to present themselves and to prove that the Emperor as well as the German population could be proud of them and their efforts they made so far. So, clearly that is a huge point of propagandistic narrative and just subtle in some way. And he is still looking at the troops while they are marching besides him, still checking. And on the right side again we see the trumpeter in his blue uniform, the very traditional one. And in the background we see the or L church, while the troops are still marching. But we see they are wearing their gas mask canister actually, but no backpack or knapsack. And as we can see as well that they obviously had a lot of spectators, civilians as well as from the military, and some cheering marches, and some cheering masters as we see. So it kind of worked, at least it has a very huge impact on this movie itself. And now we are about to see the visit of His Majesty at the house of the Black Cats, and afterwards a departure on the front. The House of the Black Hats was and is an iconic building, which was destroyed by the Germans in World War II, and later even more by the Soviets and rebuilt in 1993 to 1999. Because it was so famous, the Emperor of course had to visit it with his staff. And we see just all the beauty of the building. And interesting here are the cars in the front. The cars do not have a roof, but are more open, have the German eagle on their side, and seem to be high-end cars of that period. We just see them standing but not driving anywhere. And still waiting for the Emperor. On the right, on the upper part, we can see some sort of Russian writing. And yeah. So the problem is here that the cars of the Emperor did not really drive away, and we have no idea if he really went to the front lines or if it was just stated or not. Anyway, now we are going to the Thanksgiving service. And I have to say that the service and believing is a part of World War I which is actually completely forgotten. Meaning services in clergy during the war, which had a kind of big role, but is nowhere or just very rarely mentioned actually. That is, by the way, a huge point of contemporary criticism of the later novels in the late 1920s and even other media, that not even bothers to mention the priests and pastors who supported the troops in their way. That is actually something we definitely have to dive deeper into at some point, because faith and religion played a huge role in that time. And we see just all the masses around the ceremony there. And now we are on the Alexander Boulevard. Now this footage shows a street with lots and lots of carriages and medium-sized artillery guns or mine throwers, drawn by horses, possibly on their way to the front lines. Again, we get a slight idea of sheer masses there. And now we are going to the German theater. So that is something of a touristic footage, I would say. Yes, we see some soldiers in it, but only to see some beauty more. Maybe here again we have some sort of subtle propagandistic footage. Just looking at the architecture and all the soldiers walking by. And now we have here the reporting of Russian military conscripts. And this is exactly again what we see here. Only question would be why? Do they get imprisoned, enlisted for the Germans? Do they have to do some work? It's hard to say. Especially from this short piece. Only we get suggested a huge success by the Germans in finding them. Now we are going to the Russian theater. So again, it is something slightly touristic. Only here in the front we saw just a German carriage. And now, here a lot of conquered banners and flags, which are huge objects of prestige. Does anyone watching this know some Russian and would be able to translate? I'm really curious what they say. And some more. And even hold with a gun and a bayonet. Yes, it seems to be a very important flag actually, but I have no idea. And now, apart from that, a lot of conquered guns, artillery guns and all kinds of mine throwers which get inspected and checked by German troops. It cannot get more propagandistic than this, right? We see all the masses that were looted. Maybe a guard there in the middle and just a lot of German soldiers. And here on the last panel it says, spoils of victory. This amounts to 325 guns, 1/3 of them heavy, as well as many machine guns and mine launchers. In addition, several loaded full and small railway trains, large pioneer equipment, shooting supplies and rations, numerous motor vehicles and other troop vehicles fell into our hands. In total, that is something, not much compared to the total numbers of the war, but still something at least. And now for the conclusion. Let us recap what we just watched. It started with supply troops crossing the river, then showing some dead Russians in a conquered emplacement, a chaotic field, and so on. In short, what was left over after the battle. Followed up by troops, especially cavalry crossing the river and getting off the prairies. Here and there, some shots of the city, interrupted by showing some demolitions, allegedly done by the Russian troops. In contrast to that, some German troops enjoying their free time, then followed up by quite a few footages of the German Emperor inspecting the troops. In the end, after short impressions of theaters, some Russians, and spoils of war, which were all kind of weapons and stuff for the front lines. So yes, we have a clear propagandistic touch and narrative throughout the film. It focused mainly on the bravery of soldiers, that their sacrifices are highly appreciated by the German people, embodied by the Emperor. Additionally, the task of the documentation was to show that the soldiers are good, having a great time after the fighting. The most interesting part for me was the piece about the cavalry, the departure of a squadron of Uhlans. In there, we were able to actually observe the presence of lances as late as 1917. Then other pieces of the gear and how it was worn. In total, we have here a piece made to stabilize the home front. That is done by showing the fights are won, progress on the front lines is made, and the soldiers are taken care of, even by the Emperor himself. Nonetheless, this is a highly interesting and insightful film. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And what do you think of this format? This as well, let me know in the comments. Apart from that, thank you all for watching, have a good one, and see you next time.